Hi everyone, welcome back to our new One World API seminar. It's my pleasure having here today Mehdi Faragati from the University of Montpellier, who will talk about approximate Bayesian computation with deep learning and conformal prediction.
Okay, so thanks a lot for the invitation. So the work I will present you today is a joint work with 4 colleagues from the French National Institute of the Agricultural Research and Environment. So this is a teamwork I will present you, and I hope you will forgive my English and my French accents. So first, I will explain you our motivation for the method I will present you. We'll place ourselves in a framework where we want to carry on parameter inference. In this framework, the likelihood plays a key role in both frequencies or Bayesian inference, but it's not unusual that it is difficult to work with, either because no closed form expression exists or because of a prohibitive computational cost. So to overcome the intractability of the likelihood, several approaches have been proposed, among which we can cite, for example, the use of composite likelihoods, that is, linear combinations of smaller order log likelihoods, and some work also exists about posterior distributions. Other likelihood-free approaches called simulation-based inference use Bayesian conditional density estimation to learn an approximation of the likelihood or of the exact posterior parametrically or non-parametrically. And approximate Bayesian computation methods have also become very popular because they can be quite efficient and easy to use. So here we will restrict our attention to parameter inference in an ABC framework. So we will note theta as a parameter of interest, pi the prior of theta, and we have x an observation. The posterior of interest is given by pi of theta given x, and the Bayes rule tells us that it's proportional to the likelihood times the prior. But in an ABC framework, where the likelihood is intractable, we will replace the computation of this likelihood by the need to be able to simulate from the model under consideration. So for most of the ABC methods, the goal is to approximate the whole posterior distribution of interest from simulation from the model. I will briefly explain the vanilla standard ABC. I think most of you know it, but I'm not sure, so I will just take a few time. So assume that we have an observed data and we have a prior distribution for theta. We can randomly draw n parameters value for theta, and for each of these value, we can simulate a dataset from the model. Then we will compare the simulated datasets with the observed data. If, like here, for instance, the simulated dataset is close to the observed data, we will decide to keep the associated theta value. And if the simulated dataset, like here, for instance, is different from the observed dataset, we will decide to reject the associated theta value. So at the end, we will have a certain number of accepted value for theta, and all this value will enable us to obtain an approximate posterior distribution. So the principle is quite simple. It is merely an accept-reject algorithm, but in practice, it's not always easy to compare the simulated data with the observed data. So to avoid the burden of multidimensionality, classically, we use summary statistics to summarize the data sets. We have to choose a distance to be able to compare them, and also a tolerance level to decide whether a simulated data set is close enough to the observed one to accept the associated parameter value. So the idea is that using representative summary statistics with a relevant distance and a small tolerance level, we should obtain a good approximation of the posterior distribution. We can have theoretical guarantees of this approach, that is Bayesian posterior consistency, but some conditions are necessary, and this condition can be quite difficult to check in practice. To illustrate the fact that this vanilla ABC algorithm is not always easy to use, I will present you 2 examples that I will treat during my presentation. The first example is the Lotka-Volterra model, which describes dynamics of biological systems in which 2 species interact, prey and predators. So we consider a stochastic version of the model with the state x1 and x2 representing the population sizes of prey and predators during time, and 3 transitions are possible, with hazard rate depending on parameters θ1, θ2, and θ3. These transitions are representing a prey growth, a predation of a predator on a prey, and a predator death. The parameter of interest in this model is 3-dimensional, and the data set will correspond to the observation of the population sizes of prey and predators at times 0 to 4 and so on until 36. So it corresponds to 2 time series of length 19. So here you can see an example of a data set generated from the model. So you can see the 2 time series. And if we look at different data sets generated from the model, we can realize that the shapes, the data sets are very different, both in their shapes, but also in their magnitude. Here you can see 300, and here, for instance, 2000. So from this time series, we can realize that it's not easy to find a good summary to represent the data set and a relevant distance to compare them. Another example I present you, which is a bit more challenging and more original, is a model for lake ecosystem dynamics. So we consider a system of 2 differential equations representing time evolution of phytoplankton and inorganic phosphorus concentrations in a lake. So if you look at this system, you can see that this model has a large number of parameters. And looking at this equation, you can see that the influence of the parameters are highly nonlinear. Moreover, we can note that this model is non-dominated, meaning that it does not admit any likelihood with respect to a reference measure. For this model, we have 15 parameters, but among which 6 have a fixed value. So at the end, we have a vector of parameter theta of dimension 9. A data set will correspond to the observation of concentrations of phytoplankton and inorganic phosphorus 2 times per day during 1 year. So at the end, we have 2 time series of length 730. So here you can see an example of a data set generated from the model. It's not shown here, but if we generate several data sets with different parameter sets, we can have very different shapes, like the previous example. We can also see that it's difficult to find good summary statistics, in particular to capture things like that. It will also be difficult to find a good distance and a tolerance level. So from this kind of models, which are complex and with high dimensional parameters, the classical standard ABC suffer from the curse of dimensionality and can be quite inefficient because numerous draws can be rejected before accepting one. That's why alternative samplers have been proposed in a search for computational efficiency. So we can cite approaches using Monte Carlo Markov chains or sequential Monte Carlo. And this is still an active field of research. But for these 2 types of approaches, the degree of approximation of the posterior distribution will still depend on the choices of the tolerance threshold, the distance, and the summary statistics. And these choices are problem dependent, and in practice, they are often chosen by the practitioner in a subjective way. So to get rid of the tolerance levels and to mitigate for the need of identifying relevant summary statistics, several authors have proposed machine learning method to use machine learning methods. For instance, we can cite the approach of Reynal et al., who proposed to make an automatic selection of relevant summary statistics and to use random forest as a black box to obtain a point estimate of the posterior of interest. So they do not use any tolerance level and they do not need any distance. And we can also cite the approach of Akeson et al., who use convolutional neural networks to estimate the posterior mean, and then the posterior mean is used as a summary statistic in a standard ABC. Okay, so now we can think a little bit about the uncertainty quantification, which is of key importance when doing inference. Otherwise, the estimators have a limited practical applicability. To quantify such uncertainty, Bayesian methods provide posterior credible sets from highest posterior density regions or through the use of posterior quantiles. For many simple parametric models, the Bernstein-von Mises theorem ensures that these posterior credible sets will asymptotically be confidence sets as well, reconciling the frequentist and the Bayesian approach. However, for complex or non-parametric models, the Bernstein-von Mises theorem does not hold in general, and the question is still unanswered about how much we can trust Bayesian credible set as a measure of confidence in the statistical procedure from a frequentist perspective. And this question is quite interesting because if the posterior coverage probability of a Bayesian credible set does not match with the corresponding frequentist coverage probability, what does the Bayesian credible set mean objectively or empirically? If they do not match, a Bayesian credible set may not be relevant for applied statisticians who perform repeated experiments, for instance. So this match between a Bayesian credible set and a frequentist confidence set, which is called the probability matching criterion, is a very desirable property, but it can be hard to check for non-parametric and high-dimensional models when the exact posterior distribution is known. So it is even more difficult to check it in an ABC framework where the posterior distribution is approximated. Concerning our work, we do not wish to enter into the debate opposing Bayesian and frequentist approaches, but we just want to point out that a frequentist point of view can also be of interest when using a Bayesian method, the best, of course, being, if possible, to have a match between the two. So, this general introduction brings us to the contribution we propose. Indeed, we propose a new ABC implementation we named ABCG conformal, which does not require summary statistics, distance, nor tolerance level, which can deal with multidimensional parameters. We will not search to have an approximation of the whole posterior distribution. Instead, we will focus on some point estimate of the posterior, like Reynolds et al. And we will give associated confidence set with a proper frequentist coverage. Our approach will be based on neural networks with Monte Carlo dropout to obtain the point estimates, and we will use conformal prediction to give confidence sets. It will require a sampling function, like any ABC method, a neural network whose architecture is tailored to our problem of interest, and a confidence level delta for the confidence sets. So I will now present you the main idea of the method, then what is a neural network with dropout, how we can use conformal prediction to obtain valid confidence sets, and then briefly the implementation of the method. So first, concerning the main ideas, the principle, like Reynolds et al., we want to focus on, we don't want to approximate the whole posterior of interest. Instead, we want to focus on functionals of this form here, and depending on the T function, it can be moments of the posterior distribution, the posterior mean, posterior variance, or posterior quantiles. In the following, after this slide, we will consider that without loss of generality, we will consider that T is the identity function. So in the following, we will focus on estimating the posterior mean. We do not want to use distance or tolerance level, so we do not want to use a standard ABC step with accept reject principle. We do not want to use summary statistics. Instead, we will use neural networks. Why neural networks? Because they can have a very strong predictive power for problems having multidimensional inputs with local dependent structure. So it will depend on your data set, depending if you have, I don't know, time series, images, videos. You can decide to use different types of neural networks. For instance, dense neural networks, convolutional neural networks, or recurrent neural networks. All of these neural networks can take the raw dataset X as inputs without transforming them, without the need of summary statistics. And the output that will be T of theta for us can be multidimensional without any problem. Then we will use dropout layers. I will explain that. And thanks to these dropout layers, we will be able to estimate the functional of interest and to give an associated uncertainty. And from this estimate and the associated uncertainty, using a conformal procedure, we can obtain valid confidence sets. So I will enter into more details. First, I can explain you briefly what is a neural network and how we can introduce dropout. What is dropout? So first, concerning neural network, a neural network has an architecture given by the number of layers, 4 here, the number of units, so of neurons per layer, here 6, 4, 3, and 2. It's also, you also need to specify the activation functions that can be non-linear. It's very important, and they can be different depending on the layers. And we also have to choose the type of layers. As I said before, it can be dense, recurrent, convolutional, and so on. Once the architecture of the neural network is given, the network will be defined by its parameters, that is, its weight matrices, representing the connections between layers, and the vector of biases for each layer. As the activation functions can be non-linear, using such a neural network, the relationship between the input and the output can be non-linear and quite complex. So now the important point in practice is to understand that for a given network, with a given architecture, this network can be modified very easily by adding some dropout in the layers. So what does that mean? For a layer with dropout, that means that at every training step, some neurons of the layer, so the layer is the same, but some neuron will be randomly dropped according to a dropout probability. Hence, dropout will introduce randomness in the neural network and so in the output. This dropout technique was classically used to avoid overfitting in the neural network, but concerning our work, we will use this technique to associate uncertainties and with predictions from a network. This was an idea of Yaringal during his thesis. So that means how we will obtain this uncertainty. It's because if we repeat the same prediction task several times, so if we do Monte Carlo dropout, that is, we take the input here and we will pass the input through the network with dropout several times. At each time, the drop unit will be different. So it will produce different outputs. And from all these different outputs, we can obtain a prediction and an associated uncertainty. If we want to look at that into more details, for each of the K Monte Carlo iteration, because we will perform K Monte Carlo iteration, so K pass through the neural network, the drop units are different. So the neural network with input X will output a prediction which is written here, and an associated model precision. You can see that this prediction and this model precision depend on small k, so depend on the iteration. And if we repeat that for capital K iteration, we will obtain capital K predictions and associated model precision. And from this, all these predictions, we can obtain an approximation of the posterior mean of interest, which is given here by theta hat. And this is simply the empirical mean of the K predictions, the prediction obtained during the k-forward stochastic passive through the network with dropout. We can also obtain an associated uncertainty, which is V hat here with this formula. This is simply the inverse model precision plus the sample variance of the predictions of the k-stochastic forward path through the network with dropout. So it's very easy to obtain in practice. This is basically just empirical means. Yaringal, during his thesis, named this uncertainty the overall uncertainty, and he decomposed it into an aleatoric uncertainty, which is this part, and an epistemic uncertainty, which is this part here. And he gives also some interpretations of these two terms. I do not explain here how these formula are obtained. If you want more details, you can read our paper, or above all, I can refer you to the Yaringal thesis. Okay, so now while using conformal prediction, because for a given input x, we will pass x through the neural network with dropout, and we will obtain we will obtain an approximation of the posterior mean of interest, theta hat, and an associated uncertainty, v hat, and from these two values, we can, thanks to conformal prediction, we will obtain a rigorous confidence set. So what is the procedure? First, we need to generate a calibration dataset. So this calibration set should be IID with our test data. In practice, 100 of samples are enough, and we should choose a level delta for the confidence set. Then we'll compute a score function for each of the data sample in the calibration set. That is, for each of these sample xj, the sample will be passed through the network with dropout, and for each of these samples, we will obtain a theta hat, a v hat, and from these two values, we can compute this score. So we will obtain a score for each sample in the calibration set, and from all these scores, we can compute a conformal quantile, and this is merely a quantile of all the score obtained in step 2. Once we have the conformal quantile, we can then obtain a confidence set for theta given any new x. What do? We will take x as input of the neural network with dropout. X will be passed through the neural network with dropout k times, and it will enable us to obtain an approximation of the posterior mean of interest theta hat and an associated uncertainty v hat. And from theta hat and v hat and the conformal quantile, we can obtain here confidence set. This confidence set is simply an ellipsoid of center theta hat and with covariance matrix is given by this formula. So in dimension 1, you can see here it looks like classical confidence intervals, except that instead of having a quantile of Gaussian or student distribution, it is replaced by the conformal quantile. What is very interesting when using the conformal procedure is that the confidence sets obtained through such a procedure will verify the marginal coverage property. This property will ensure that the coverage of the confidence sets obtained will be between these two values. And you can see that if the size of the calibration set is large, it will ensure that it is quite close to 1 minus delta. Hence, from an heuristic uncertainty, here it's an uncertainty we obtained using dropout, but it can be any uncertainty. So from an heuristic uncertainty without any theoretical property, without any assumption, the conformal procedure, using the conformal procedure, we can obtain a rigorous confidence set because it provides a valid frequency coverage it provides a valid frequency coverage. And as we are in an ABC framework, it reconciliates the two points of view. This property is non-asymptotic. It doesn't need any distributional or model assumptions. And as you have seen just before, it's very easy to implement, very easy to understand at almost no cost. We can think a little bit about what would be the result from a good conformal prediction procedure. If we think a little bit about that, we can realize that we expect that for easy input, that is input for which it's easy to obtain an approximation with a good certainty, we should expect to have small sets, small confidence sets. And on the opposite, we expect to have large sets for hard inputs. So in fact, we expect to have the size of the set which reflects the model uncertainty. And what is very interesting is that this performance will depend only on the quality of the uncertainty measure we used. So to have a good conformal prediction procedure, this uncertainty measure we use should reflect the magnitude of the model error. So it should be smaller for easy input and larger for hard ones. So it's better if it's like that, but even if it's not the case, the marginal coverage property still holds. And to finish about conformal prediction, there is a drawback of this procedure. Is that because we have a marginal property and we would have preferred a conditional coverage property, because the marginal property will guarantee an average coverage over the whole domain of X. You can see here, this is an average over the whole domain of X. And it does not guarantee a coverage for any given X. So it does not guarantee, like in this equation, a conditional coverage. Of course, we would have preferred to have this stronger property. So now I can finish by explaining you briefly the implementation of the method. So in the first step, we need to generate a training dataset, which is commonly called a reference table in the ABC framework, and a calibration dataset, and if necessary, a validation dataset. The neural network with dropout will be trained on the reference table. The validation dataset can be used to compare different architecture of the neural networks and to choose the best, but it's depending on the example, it's not necessary. Then, in the third step, we will use Monte Carlo dropout prediction for each sample in the calibration set to obtain the conformal quantile. So each sample of the calibration set will be passed through the neural network with dropout k times. We will obtain k prediction, and by averaging them, we will obtain an approximation of the posterior expected mean and associated heuristic uncertainties. So these heuristic uncertainties, it can be, as I have shown before, the overall uncertainty, the aleatoric uncertainty, or the epistemic uncertainty. Then we have to choose one, and from this approximation and the heuristic uncertainty chosen, we can compute a score for each of the sample in the calibration set. And from all this score, we obtain the conformal quantile. Then, for any new given data sample X, if this data sample is passed through the network with dropout k time, we can similarly obtain an approximation of the posterior expected mean of posterior expected value of interest and an associated confidence set for theta. To obtain this confidence set, we will use the approximation of the posterior expected value, the heuristic uncertainty given by the dropout technique, plus the conformal quantile. Okay. So now we can go back to our example to see the performance of the proposed approach. First, before talking about the Lotka-Volterra model, just to say that in our paper, we have treated 4 examples, the moving average 2 toy example, 2-dimensional Gaussian random field, and the Lotka-Volterra and the lake ecosystem dynamics models. For these examples, the parameter of interest, the dimension of the parameter of interest varies from 1 to 9. And we compared our approach with different ABC methods. So we compared it with the standard ABC, with the ABC SMC, which is a gold standard ABC methods. Then we compare it to the ABC CNN of Akeson et al., so using also a convolutional neural network. And we also compare it to the ABC random forest method of Reynal et al. All the examples have been implemented in Julia and or R. So we have to say that the same data sets were used for all methods to be fair for the comparison, except for the ABC SMC method because it is a sequential one, so it was not possible. And it is also important to note that the type of results obtained are not the same depending on the method. For standard ABC, ABC SMC, and ABC CNN, we obtain an approximation of the whole posterior distribution, while for ABC random forest and our approach, we only obtain an approximation of the posterior expected mean, which is then used to estimate the true value of theta and associated confidence set for theta. How do we compare the methods? So for each of the examples, we add test data sets containing 1,000 samples. And for each test sample, X generated from value of theta. From all the ABC methods, we obtain an approximation of the posterior expected value, theta hat, and credible or confidence set, depending on the method, for theta. We do that for all the sample in the test set, and then we can compare the method using the normalized mean absolute error for each marginal of theta, the standard deviation of the absolute error also for each marginal of theta, and then we also compare credible and confidence sets or interval that is in dimension 1 for marginal of theta. We compare the coverages, the mean and the median length of the intervals, and for a multidimensional theta, we compare the coverage, the coverages, the mean and the median volumes for the multidimensional ellipsoids. So now for the Lotka-Volterra example, very briefly, for standard ABC and ABC SMC, there were no obvious summary statistics, and we decided to use the following distance function between a sample from the test set and a sample from the training set, which is simply the sum of the square differences between the time series. For ABC-CNN and ABCD conformal, we used the same neural network architectures. So this is the same network with the same architecture. The architectures is quite simple. And the only difference for ABC-CNN and ABCD conformal is the use of dropout for no use of dropout for ABC-CNN and the use of dropout for ABCD conformal. Concerning the input and the output of these neural networks, the input are the two time series of length 19 representing the population sizes of prey and predator during time, and the output are the theta vectors of dimension 3. Concerning the heuristic uncertainty for the ABCD conformal, we used two different uncertainty. A good one, which is the overall uncertainty obtained using the dropout, and a bad one, which is simply a constant uncertainty. So what do we obtain? So here, this is just an extract of the parameters. You can see only results about the third component of theta and for the multidimensional theta, but the same kind of results were obtained for the other component of theta. So we can see that ABC-CNN and ABCD conformal outperform the other method in terms of NMRE, here you can see, or in terms of standard deviation of the absolute errors. If we look at the mean and median lengths of the confidence intervals, sometimes ABC-CNN is better, sometimes it's ABCD conformal. And if we look at the coverages of the confidence interval or the confidence ellipsoid, we can see that ABC, SMC, and ABC, CNN are discorded. Indeed, if you look here, the coverage is too small for ABC, SMC, and also here in 3 dimension for ABC, CNN. Then we can look at the impact of the heuristic uncertainty. And when using a constant uncertainty measure, here you can see that the mean and median volume of the confidence ellipsoids are the same, meaning that the confidence sets do not apply do not adapt to the input, whether it's an easy input or hard input. The length of the confidence, the volume of the confidence ellipsoid is the same. Whereas for the overall uncertainty obtained with dropout, you can see that there is a huge difference between mean and median volume. Here, this is because the confidence sets are small for most of the easy input. So it's very small for most of the inputs which are easy, and it's very large for the few hard ones. However, for both of this uncertainty, you can see that the coverage is good. So, marginally and globally, the ABCD conformal gives the most acceptable results. But we wanted to investigate these big differences between mean and median volume, which is the case for all methods. So, we have decided to divide the range of θ3 in 3 regions, as you see here, to compare the performances of the methods in these 3 regions. So these 2 regions are easy regions, and this one is quite difficult. What we can see here is that the length of the confidence intervals and the coverage depend on the regions for all methods. So I will give you an example. If we look to standard ABC here, you can see the coverage on the whole domain is 97%. But if we look at this region, is 98%. Here it's almost 98%. But here in this region, it's only 77% of coverage. And this is the case for all the methods. And that illustrates the marginality of the coverage. What can we see also here is that ABCD conformal is the least bad on this difficult region. Looking at the coverage, this is the least bad method. And even in volume, it's better than standard ABC. These 2 volumes here are smaller for ABC SMC and ABC CNN, but their coverage are obviously too small. And for easy regions, like here, we can see that ABCD conformal is very good, both in terms of coverage and also in terms of length of the confidence interval. So to conclude, ABCD conformal is often better than the other method, with better predictions and smaller confidence sets associated to good coverage, better than the other method. So to illustrate this example, I can show you for a given example in the test dataset, the estimated parameter theta with 3 methods, ABCD conformal, ABC CNN, and standard ABC, with associated confidence ellipsoid and the true value of theta here, which is a triangle. So what we can see here is that the confidence ellipsoid obtained using ABCD conformal, which is the orange one, is smaller than the confidence ellipsoid obtained with the other method, and it includes the true value of theta. So it's good. For this other example, we can see on the opposite that the confidence ellipsoid obtained with ABCD conformal is larger than the ellipsoid obtained with the other method. But this ellipsoid is the only one to include the true value of theta. And that show here that the other 2 methods fail to capture the difficulty of estimating this parameter, and so they provide too small confidence ellipsoids, which do not include the true parameter. So now we can go back to the lake ecosystem dynamics example. So for this example, for standard ABC and ABC SMC, there was no obvious summary statistics, so we decided to use this distance function. Here we used the NMR-E to get rid of the scales because the trajectories of phytoplankton and inorganic phosphorus have very different scales. Concerning the neural network architecture for ABC-CNN and ABCD conformal, it's again very simple, and by the way, it's the same architecture than for the previous example. And the difference is that it's without dropout for ABC-CNN and with dropout for ABCD conformal. The inputs are the 2 pairs of time series of length 730, given the time evolution of phytoplankton and phosphorus concentration in the lake, and the output is theta of dimension 9. Concerning the heuristic uncertainty, we only used the overall uncertainty obtained by dropout. So what can we see here? This is just an extract. I show you only the first component and the component 6 of theta and the multidimensional theta. But what I will say you was true for all the components. That is that ABCD conformal always have a good coverage, on the contrary to the other methods. So here, for instance, you can see the coverage as always good. And you can see, for instance, here it's a little bit too small, here again, here again, here again. So depending on the components, ABCD conformal always have a good coverage. If we look at NME and the standard deviation of the absolute errors, the ABCD conformal often, not always, but often outperforms the other methods. You can see here, for instance, for theta1. Concerning the mean and median length of the confidence intervals, they are often smaller for the ABCD conformal, like here, for instance, you see it's smaller. If not, like for the component 6, if it's not the smaller, it was always because it was always associated to a too small coverage of the method with a smaller length of confidence interval. And when we look at confidence ellipses, ABCD conformal is the best, considering both volume and coverage. So here you can see it has the best coverage, and if you look at the volume, ABC SMC have a smaller volume, but it is associated to a too small coverage. I will show you these scatter plots of the estimated parameters against their true value for each component of theta and for the 1,000 test samples. And you can also see in gray the associated confidence or credible sets depending on the method. So here, this is the result obtained using standard ABC, and as you can see, it's not very good. Here, this is the result using ABC SMC. We can see an improvement, especially for theta 8 here, but it's still not very good. Here, this is using ABC CNN. So if you can compare the two, we can see a slight improvement, a big improvement. And we attribute this improvement to the use of neural networks. And for us, that shows the pitfall of using summary statistics like in standard ABC and in ABC SMC. And then this is a scatter plot obtained with ABCD conformal. So if we compare with ABC CNN, we can see a slight improvement again. And that show for us that show a pitfall of using the distance and threshold like with the previous methods. Of course, not all the parameters are well estimated. In particular, you can see here theta 5, theta 6, and theta 7. We do not have a good result, but that can be explained because these parameters are not identifiable. And we can go back to the definition of the model to realize that. So their respective impact on the dynamics are difficult to capture. For such model, for such complex model, sometimes it's more common to study the problem of calibration rather than the problem of parameter estimation. Indeed, sometimes the goal is more to find a parameter set for which the simulated outputs are close to the observed data. So to check that, we have reconstructed time series of phytoplankton and inorganic phosphorus content using the estimated theta parameters with two methods, ABCD conformal and ABC CNN. Then we compared this reconstructed series with the initial series from which the parameters were estimated. So the initial series is in blue. And we can compare ABC conformal in red and ABC CNN in green. What we can see is that the reconstructions are quite good. We succeed to capture this kind of effect, even if it's not perfect with some shift. And what we can also say is that ABCD conformal have better reconstructions than ABC CNN. So we can finish with a small discussion about our method. So we have proposed a new ABC implementation that combine neural networks with Monte Carlo dropout and a conformal procedure, which does not require summary statistics, distance, tolerance level. We can deal with multidimensional parameter, and we can give confidence sets with a guaranteed frequentist non-asymptotic coverage. In practice, it's computationally efficient. We have good results compared to our other methods. It gives a trade-off between estimation accuracy and a good marginal frequentist coverage, which is not the case for all the methods. It seems to us that it suffers less of the curse of dimensionality than the other method. And so it's a good alternative to other methods when there is no obvious summary statistics. I don't think I have time, but good property also is that our procedure is amortized. Concerning the drawback, of course, there is some drawbacks. It concerns mainly multimodal posteriors, because as we obtain only point estimates of the parameter of interest and not an approximation of the whole posterior, we are unable to detect multimodality. Moreover, we have said that before, but the coverage is valid marginally and not conditionally, so the performance can vary depending on the region of the parameter. But this is the case of all methods in practice. And this issue can be mitigated by the fact that ABCD conformal is able to adapt confidence sets to easy, difficult value if we have a good heuristic uncertainty. And to finish with some perspective, we can improve this method or modify it. First, concerning the heuristic uncertainty that we obtained using dropout, but we could also have used drop connect instead of dropout, or we could have used deep ensembles. And more generally, any method for obtaining an uncertainty associated with the output of a neural network can be used. So it can be any method that I don't know or that can be developed in the future. And concerning conformal procedure, we focused on conformalizing a scalar uncertainty estimate because the vector theta was a vector of scalars. But you can also use conformalized quantile regression. And we focused on a split conformal procedure because this is computationally attractive, but we can also use full conformal procedure if we want to avoid having to generate a calibration dataset. Okay, so just to finish, we give some supplementary materials. So we have a GitLab repository with our source codes and datasets to reproduce our example. You can also find notebooks in R or Julia, and the Julia package have been developed. And you can find the paper on arXiv. And to finish, here is an extract of the references of the paper, of the most important references of the paper. So thanks a lot for for listening to me.